Now, as a rail fan, it's very rare that the field ever actually crosses over into politics unless the president directly gets involved in some sort of resolution. However, I think I found one of those rare cases where trains and politics overlap. This one involves a decades-old railroad and a equally decades-old prime minister of a nation who doesn't look like he's going anywhere soon. Contrast to the railroad that I am comparing him to. And, well, without further ado, let's begin, because you probably read the title and knew what you were getting yourself into by clicking this. Starting off with the railroad, Wisconsin Central, or Wisconsin Central Transportation Corporation, but I'm going to be calling it WC for short, was a North American railroad that was a subsidiary of Canadian National, running through Ontario, Michigan, Wisconsin, obviously, and then finally going on down to Chicago. Now, although this does sound unassuming, Wisconsin Central Transport Corporation, which was Wisconsin Central's parent company, actually owned and operated railroads in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, and Australia. Now, the railroad itself lasted between 1981 to 2001, and despite this short lifespan and its short size, the railroad is largely adored by rail fans for quite a few reasons. I'd argue the main one is probably its paint, which does actually look really good, as well as the logo, which suspiciously looks like another railroad, but we won't get into that. Now, the railroad itself would last all the way up until October 9th, 2001, where Canadian National purchased the Wisconsin Central for $800 million, which, if you ask me, is a little too much. However, a large majority of this covered the railroad's debt, which was $400 million. Now, as to how the hell you get into $400 million debt, I have absolutely no idea, but it might have something to do with something that I'm going to be covering pretty soon. That being because in March 4th, 1996, a Wisconsin Central train derailed and fucking blew up in Waukega, Wisconsin, causing a 16-day evacuation and lockdown of the town. Now, to put it to scale, this was pretty much the Lac-Megantic of the 1990s, and as a result, the Wisconsin Central had to pay millions of dollars in debt because they pretty much just fucking nuked a town off the face of Wisconsin. On the topic of bombing, Netanyahu, that's right, you know him, you love him, Benjamin Netanyahu. Born October 1949, he has been the current head of state of Israel since 2022. Now, despite this, he had actually held the position of Prime Minister of Israel from 1996 to 1999, and then from 2009 to 2021. Now, he is Israel's longest-serving Prime Minister and was born in Tel Aviv. Now, besides partaking in the mandatory military service of Israel, why am I bringing him up? Well, just like how Wisconsin Central likes to bomb towns off the map, he instead likes to bomb entire countries off the map. And it's the fact that this man really seems to love bombing random Middle Eastern countries and or threatening to send them back to the Stone Age. Now, forgive me because I'm not all too well versed in Middle Eastern politics, but I'm pretty sure if you get sued by the International Criminal Court and have a warrant out for your arrest for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity, then you're probably not that great of a person. He also really seems to love rage baiting the Iranian government into posting random shit on Twitter. Everyone will feel it, buddy. The only thing you're gonna feel is America's dick up your ass. Now, what do they have in common? Well, besides blowing up towns and forcing the evacuation of people from said areas, it also appears that they have quite the big backers behind them. As while Israel seems to have the entirety of the GOP and Donald I Like to Touch Kids, Wisconsin Central has their parent company of Wisconsin Central Transportation and the Canadian National. Now, while Netanyahu was sued by the International Court for War Crimes, Wisconsin Central had a class action lawsuit with two businesses joining in, suing them for over $28 million, which they failed to pay back by the end of the year. And another thing we can compare is how the US extorts stuff to them. And while the US needed to extort the National Guard to Waukega in order for a pet rescue, the US extorts millions of dollars to pay Israel every year, or months, or day, or fuck it, every nanosecond. Another thing we can compare is their CEOs. While Netanyahu has big ears and an atrocious forehead, Canadian National CEO, who now owns Wisconsin Central, has the worst haircut I think I've ever seen and looks like an old person you'd see on Shark Tank. After adding all of this up, I've come to the controversial conclusion that yes, Wisconsin Central is in fact worse than Netanyahu. Is this ranking something I stand by? Probably not, especially because our Prime Minister Mark Carney really wants to arrest Netanyahu. But hey, man, I'm looking at the facts here, and the facts say Wisconsin Central is probably worse or something. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. That actually took me about a fucking day to make. I'll see you later.